Call the North Reading School Committee meeting to order for September 9th, 2013. If you're watching tonight, we're on Channel 22 on Comcast, Channel 24 on Verizon, and you'll notice we're at the Selectmen's Room 14 at Town Hall, and I want to thank the Selectmen and the Town Administrator for working with the Superintendent and making this room available for us. We'll be meeting here for the next year, and hopefully at this time next year, we'll be meeting in the Distance Learning Lab at the high school. So with that, we'll get the meeting started.
Again, Mr. Chairman, does that mean our meeting's going to get over at 11:30?
No.
We're all going to be arguing with each other?
No, we will be done.
All right.
We will be done by
I just
9
wanna
o'clock
make
tonight,
sure.
Mr.
All right.
Venezia. I assure you of that. First item on the agenda, public input. And seeing no one here from the public tonight, we do not have any public input. Next, we'll turn it over to Superintendent Willis for an update on the school building project. Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last secondary school building committee meeting was held on August 27th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. I'm pleased to report to you that the secondary school building committee and a couple of other community members participated in a tour of the construction site from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. on that date prior to the meeting. So we were escorted by the professionals Doran Whittier, PMA Associates, and Gilbane, and they provided a narration for the tour, and all I can say is it was amazing. We were able to walk through and see the interior beginning to take shape, as well as hear about what's coming next with the exterior of the building. I think most of you around this table participated in that tour. I don't know if you want to add anything else, but it's very exciting, and it was wonderful to be standing at the windows of the Distance Learning Lab, looking out over the treetops, as well as the center of North Reading. It truly was an incredible sight.
The whole thing is exciting, but the two things that I appreciated the most were the auditorium, which, because it's taken shape a little bit more than the gymnasium and the other parts, and also Main Street, which is like one of the concerns that some of us had was there going to be enough room for the students to pass. It's like a 4-lane highway with a 20-foot ceiling, or 25-foot ceiling. It's beautiful, and it's going to have places where students can gather, where they can hang out in addition to passing in the halls. And those two, I was amazed by those two spaces. Anybody else in the committee?
I can add that on last Thursday on the walkthrough, they were placing the floor slab in the media center and in the administrative area. And so that now that all of that area right up to where the middle school has got a floor. And then there are a lot more petitions since our walkthrough in the academic wing. That's moving along very, very quickly. They're working the stairwells now.
Yeah. Jerry?
I think you might start seeing some brick go up on the front facade of a building starting next week.
Thanks. Anything, Vinnie?
Well, just having a walk through, I was surprised to see that the walls, I guess, were the finished product. It was beautiful.
Right.
I mean, it was very, very nice.
Yeah, what they have is it's a finished block that looks, I won't say fancy, but it's got a nice finish to it, and it really looks nice when you see the walls completely up. And so it's not going to be painted like you see in a lot of buildings. Like in this room, for example, you have the cinder block that's painted. It's a finished block that stays as is, and that really was attractive. It was nice.
It was very attractive.
Yes.
And so following that tour, we did have a secondary school building committee meeting. Some of the highlights of the meeting had to do with taking a look at the invoice for the dead tree removal from the abutters. There was an increase from the original cost of $4,500 to $5,000, and so the SSBC discussed funding that additional difference, and so a vote was taken and approved. We also spent some time taking a look at the details associated with change orders, particularly change order number 6. So the committee reviewed the events that led up to the changes that were included in that changeover, and in particular in the size of the windows on the building facade facing Route 62. And there was lots of discussion around those changes, but at the end of the day, there was no additional cost associated with that change. So that was a piece of good news. On Wednesday, August 28th, there was a water main break at the high school that occurred on the student parking lot side of the construction where the wastewater treatment plant is being installed. The Gilbane contractor hit the water main while digging a trench for the new wastewater treatment plant. And so Wayne Hardacre was contacted by Gilbane as soon as it occurred, within minutes, I should say. And then Wayne Hardacre, our supervisor of building and grounds, contacted the town's water supervisor, Mark Clark. The water was shut off to the entire high school that afternoon. And then with the assistance of the contractors and the water department, repairs were started. There were tests that were done on the drinking water. The day after this occurred, there was no access to drinking water, but the lavatories were still used. As a matter of fact, we were conducting the second day of our 2-day new hire orientation. But that still went on, even though we had some challenges with the water. There was no damage to school property, and the last test finally came back clear on Tuesday, September 3rd. And we opened for students as normal on Wednesday, September 4th. So that has been taken care of, and we're back on track. The next meeting of the Secondary School Building Committee is scheduled for tomorrow, September 10th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. in the high school modular cafeteria.
I think one other piece of good news, on a regular basis at the meetings, they bring in any change orders that have any financial impact, and the change orders this week resulted in, I think, about a $5,000, on $5,000 on the plus side. So they made change orders in 4 or 5 different areas. So the extra money for the contingency fees, the owner's contingency fee, and the project manager's, or the construction contingency fee remain the same, or actually have a little bit more money in them. So anytime we can add anything.
So you're saying we're under budget?
Well, right now, we're, yeah. Under budget and on time. Under budget on the new budget and on time.
Actually, there's one other thing that is kind of good news, is that we are in the latest schedule. Every month they update the schedule. In the latest schedule, we're still at 0 float, so we're
Nice.
completing on time.
It's good to hear.
Good news.
Good to hear. Any other comments or questions on the building project?
One more piece that I will add, just Friday, I met with the furniture distributor, Tavares Design, along with Rob Usla, who is our representative from Durham Whittier, the high school principal, the middle school principal, and the director of academic services. And we were talking about adjusting the schedule for reviewing furniture and then going out to bid. For those of you that may not be aware, we're setting up a model classroom at the high school, and it was the old computer lab off of the existing library, to give teachers and students an opportunity to actually experience some of the equipment that we will be purchasing, to sit in the chairs, to take a look at the desks. We have various samples of these items included in the model classroom so that people are making informed decisions about FF&E when the time comes. So that has commenced, and I'll keep you abreast of the process moving forward. There are a million details that are involved in selecting all of the furniture and equipment under FF&E, but it has started.
I have one question, and maybe it can't be answered tonight. Maybe I can ask it tomorrow night at the SSBC. I've had a couple of residents ask me about equipment in the gym area, especially in the weight room. Does FF&E cover that kind of equipment, or is that separate?
I believe it does, and I've actually asked the superintendent to put that on the agenda for the next athletic subcommittee
okay.
meeting, so we can start talking about
Right.
that very thing,
Okay.
all of the equipment in the gym,
Okay.
and the other athletic facilities as well.
All right.
Right. We'll need to invite, I believe, Jeff Wetton to come to that
Yep.
athletic
Yeah.
subcommittee meeting so that we
But,
can get some answers.
I mentioned it to the athletic director, and again, I asked the superintendent to put it on the agenda
Okay,
for the 24th.
Mhm.
all right, great. Okay, next, Batchelder School parking update.
No real changes since the last school committee meeting, but I did just want to indicate that we have added 21 parking spaces for the school community use. It's great to see that additional parking. It's present. The lot, the paving, and the striping has been completed as part of Phase 1. Phase 2 will include additional curbing from the lot to Route 62, black fencing and plantings, and that phase should be completed within the next 2 weeks. But I especially wanted to mention that the North Reading Department of Public Works really should be commended for working with the school district in bringing this project to fruition. Because of our partnership with the DPW, under the direction of Dick Carnavale, we were able to provide a very efficient and cost-effective alternative to putting this lot in place. So I wrote a letter today to Dick Carnavale thanking him, but I just wanted to provide recognition to the school committee this evening that our DPW really stepped up and assisted us in bringing this project to completion.
If you got any indications from Sean, is that sufficient to handle the overload that they had of parking, or what? Are they still short spaces, or what's the situation?
At this particular time, every time I drive by, which is several times during the day, I see some of those spaces still open.
I agree.
think-
I've seen the
that
same
too.
thing. I've been watching it very, very
Yeah,
carefully.
I've seen 4 or 5
Spaces
open.
So I think it's meeting a need.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I agree that this isn't the first time, Mr. Chairman, that the DPW has helped us out and reduced the cost for these types of things, so we should be grateful to
And
them.
they did a really nice job.
They
And
did a
it
Yeah,
quickly.
They do
job.
great work.
It looks
Great work.
good.
Mhm.
And they were, as I said, they got it done before the school year started, which is all we can ask for.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Revised budget development calendar for fiscal year 15.
And our Director of Finance and Operations handed out another copy to you tonight, so the one you have in front of you that's separate from your packet is in fact the correct copy. We had June 2013
All right.
instead of June 2014 for the town budget being passed. So that is what had been discussed. We'll be bringing it to the Administrative Council in the very near future to make them aware of the schedule that we will be following in order to develop the FY15 budget.
Okay, now you're not going to believe this, but the one that it says amended 9/5/13 says June 2nd, 2013.
The one that was handed out tonight to you?
Yeah, that's-
But
One I have
the
says
one-
14,
Mine says 14.
the last page of what was handed to you.
Yeah, that's what I.
Maybe you want me down up in front of Mel.
I would not
Oh.
believe that if I saw that.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Because they've got a couple of more
Okay.
things.
This was given out tonight, Mel.
All right,
I don't
thank
think
you.
I might have gotten that.
So that's the only change in that?
That's correct.
Okay.
So does he have?
Do you have that?
He has it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it.
Okay. Next, opening day report. Kathy?
Yes, we had a wonderful opening to the new school year. As a matter of fact, today I met with several of the principals who also remarked how smooth the opening of school was this year. The custodians and maintenance personnel, as well as our groundskeepers, again, did an exceptional job with the upkeep of the schools over the summer, in spite of all of the summer programs that were in place in our schools for 8 out of the 10 weeks of the summer that the custodians and the maintenance staff had to work inside of our schools. So we're very pleased with the condition of our schools. We welcomed staff and faculty back on Tuesday, September 3rd, and the students in grades 1 through 12 returned on September 4th, and our preschool and our kindergarten students returned on Friday, September 6th. If you take a look in your packet, I also included a copy of the preliminary enrollments for this school year. As you know, the official enrollment count is taken on October 1st, but I wanted you to have a chance to take a look at what the enrollment looks like currently in our schools based on last Friday. So I just wanted to give you a little update. At the Batchelder School, we had projected 474 students. In the spring, we now have 481. So there's 7 more students at the Batchelder than had originally been projected. And it's noteworthy that particularly at grade 1, we had projected 75 students and we ended with 83 students. So it's a little bit of a bubble in terms of the number of students that moved into the district.
Would you say we projected 71,
75.
75?
And we
Wow.
ended with 83. At the Hood School, we projected 335.5. We currently have 341. So we added 5.5 students. And I'd say if you took a look at all of the different grade levels, we ended up with 4 more students in grade 5 than we had at the close of school last year. At the close of school, we had 70. We now have 74 in grade 5. At the little school, we saw a little bit of a decline in enrollment. We had projected 359. We currently have 355 enrolled. And so we lost 1 or 2 students here or there. No particular grade level was impacted in any great notable way. So we have an elementary total of kindergarten through grade 5 of 1,085 students. If we include our pre-K, we have a total of 1,177 students. If we take a look down at our middle school, we projected an enrollment of 681 students, and we currently have 680. Now, we projected 217 students in grade 6, but we currently have 222. So typically, we adjust the grade 5 to grade 6 by 5% because that's been the trend. But we noticed that it was a 2% decline as opposed to a 5% decline going into grade 6. So that was an interesting piece of information. But in terms of the overall population, we were pretty much right on the money. And at the high school, we had projected a total enrollment of 753 students. We have a current enrollment of 759, so that's an increase of 6 students overall. Now, we had projected 194 students for grade 9, and that's exactly what we ended up with. So we continue to see that 12% difference from grade 8 to grade 9 from last year to this year.
Do you know what the number is for, what was the number, like 210 at grade 8 last year?
It was 200, I believe, 17.
At one point, you were projecting that to be less than
Right.
that number, that 12%.
I'm sorry, grade 8 enrollment was 207.
Okay,
207,
so we lost 13 kids.
Yes.
yeah. So that was a lower.
That's not 12%.
No,
though.
I'm
That's
sorry.
not 12%. That's about 6%,
That's
6.5%.
Yeah. Which
We
is
did
much-
adjust, I'm sorry, we did adjust once. So we have a higher number of students that are in grade 9.
12% had been what we were averaging, and then we had 2 or 3 years, maybe more, with 15 to 20%
Right.
of 8th graders who were leaving the district.
And we did an average of 16% for the prior 2 years, and
Right.
then we adjusted it lower because
Right.
we anticipated that there would be fewer students leaving.
Wow, that's big.
So, again, if we take a look at the grade levels from last year to this year, where we see the higher numbers of students are in grade, I just want to take a look at this. In grade 10, last year we had 173 students. This year we have 197. And in grade 12, last year we had 167 students at the end of the year. This year we have 194.
Looking at this, if we continue the 6% decline from 8th to 9th, we'll have about 800 students to start.
We'll easily
Next
have
year at the
800
new high
students. It's really starting to show a trend, though, the decrease at the elementary level and the increase at the secondary school level. But Mel's right, you're looking at 800-plus kids over the next 3 to 4 years.
We have an
And
increase of 36 students from
Yeah.
last year to this year at the
Yeah.
high school.
And it's going to be more next year. You've got an 8th grade with 242 students.
Right.
I know.
Moving into the high school, and then if you take 8, 7, 6, 5, when they were all there at the same time,
Right.
you're well in excess of 800 kids.
On the second page that follows this broad overview, you have a chance to take a look at the enrollment at the elementary level. And if you just quickly do an average class size, you'll see it ranges anywhere from 17 to, as the lowest, and that would be in grade 3 at the little and grade 4 at the little, to a high of 25, which is grade 5 at the hood. And again, you may recall that we saw 4 students move into grade 5 at the hood, so we're 4 students higher than we were in June of 2013.
But that's really the only challenging grade at all three of our schools.
They're very favorable class sizes.
Right.
Well, the only problem you have with grade 5 is you're in a situation there where the Hood School theoretically could have been divided into four classrooms and still had the same number of students per classroom as the little school
As
does
the little
now.
school.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's a bit of a disparity there when you're going from 18 to 25.
Right. But it's good to see that we only have one grade.
Yeah, that's it.
So I will provide another update for you at the second meeting in October so that you can see the actual enrollments that are submitted to the Department of Education.
Do you have the breakdown of elementary, middle school, high school in total for last year? The official enrollment? Just like to see how that compares.
Yes, I do.
And while you're looking at that, it was interesting if you read the transcript, and they had the 30 years ago today, 50 years ago today, I don't know how they break it down. And last week, they reported on the enrollment at the schools. And it was amazing, because I think it was maybe 30 years ago, Dre, we were up to like 3,000 kids. But then 50 years ago, it was like at 1,800. And then 20 years ago, it was down to 1,800 or 2,000 again. And then it went back up to 28,
Yeah,
over 2,800.
I think when I started, it was around 2,650.
Yeah,
And it had increased by 850 students.
Right, yeah,
So
with
that
that.
was when we were going through some real budget
Right.
issues.
right,
And now it's really kind of leveled off and dropped a little bit.
yeah.
So, in terms of the elementary for 2012-13, for K through 5, it was 1,203.
What about you mean, is that pre-K through 5 or K?
According to this, it's K through 5.
Because that doesn't sound right, because that would mean if you add the pre-K in there, we would be down about 70 students this year.
Right. I think that is pre-K. I think this is not represented correctly.
I think it is too. So we're down 26 students in the elementary, which is less than I thought.
1203 includes preschool.
Okay,
So, and then in 2011-2012, pre-K through 5 was 1,268.
wow.
And right now, we're showing pre-K through 12 at 1,177.
Okay,
At the middle school, in 11-12, the middle school enrollment for 6 through 8 was 663. In 12-13, it was 670. And tonight, it's showing 680.
mhm,
And at the high school, in 2011-12, 9 through 12, 706. 12-13, 728.
wow.
And tonight, 759.
That's a lot of strain. That's a lot of kids, especially at the current facility. That's a lot of kids.
Especially at the current facility.
Yeah.
But as we look at the enrollment projections and we were doing the design enrollment, this is exactly the year where the biggest bubble was going through, according to historical trends.
Well, next year, you're going to have about 780 there, I think.
Or more.
More.
It's going to be more.
Be 780, 800 next year.
Mhm.
Cliff?
Yeah, the thing that was amazing to me is if you looked at the enrollment here for the elementary, you're looking without counting the pre-K, you were at 186 average, and the high school is 190 average per
Mhm.
grade. The middle school is the one that goes bonkers with 227.
Yeah, those 3 years, and then the fifth grade, there's 4 years of,
And the fifth grade and the second grade average out
Right.
to the right number, 186 for the elementary.
that second grade's
So
tiny.
if you throw one of those out or bring them, they average, so that you got a low number in the second grade and a high number in the fifth grade, a lot of kids in the middle school, and those are all gonna start finding their way into the high school next year.
So it looks like our overall enrollment is actually up from last year.
Mhm.
About 15 students,
Mhm.
the way I had it, something like that. Okay.
And I'm pleased pleased to see that we're not dropping as many kids.
That's,
So
yeah.
that's a big change,
There might be a reason for that.
probably.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I have to do with that thing up on the hill behind the high
I
school.
think that may be it.
There was, I don't know if, there was one minor issue I know we had at the little school. There was a brownout or something, a power issue. I think
That's
everything's
correct.
back to normal, but I don't know if you want to just give a
Sure.
brief update on that.
Sure. There was a brownout on Thursday evening, and I'm not quite sure what caused it. And Comcast was called, our network administrator went over to the school. We were told initially that we needed to order a part, but then after further exploration, it had to do with the internet connection. And so Comcast was due to come by Friday afternoon. For whatever reason, they were not able to do so, so we were down all weekend long. And then today, Comcast was scheduled to arrive at 8 o'clock. They were not there, but we regained connectivity. And I believe they showed up around 10:30 or so, and I believe that they were working with the network administrator at that time to try to identify what went wrong, because we need to know so that we can prevent that in the future if possible.
And you communicated with parents, correct? About
That's correct.
the issue and-
Principal Molly sent out a voice alert now, it's now called Connect 5, to let parents know that we had lost connectivity, but that additional numbers were provided to parents should they need to contact the school. And then she followed up this morning by letting parents know that connectivity was again restored.
Okay. Any other questions on opening day? All right. Okay. Goals, school committee goals, action plan. I looked through it, it seems fine. I don't know if we have to have any discussion tonight, since we discussed it last week, unless anybody sees any issues. I found one mistake, I think I got this one right. On the first page, under policy, research and review handheld device policies and guidelines, it says due date June 2013. That should be 14, right?
Yes, it should.
And I
Thank
think
you.
The rest of it looks fine to me.
I think it looks so good, we shouldn't discuss it again till next year.
Till June.
Honest to God.
It is a beautiful document.
It's beautiful, it's
Yeah.
really done well,
Yeah.
very well.
So unless anybody has any questions or comments, Kathy, I'm fine with it.
No, again, I indicated when I thought, based on the various activities, when they would fall as far as the timeline of accomplishing these tasks. So I plotted those out. I didn't know if there was any discussion around revising those timelines. I was hoping that edits would be identified, so that the dates are in fact correct. I do want to bring your attention to page 3, because we had identified lots more activities that focus on media. I think we may need to reconvene the communications subcommittee, because I think they're going to have more to do.
Did we appoint one? I don't know if we appointed one.
I need to go back and take a look at that.
I
I
don't
think
think
we
we
said
did.
we weren't going to
Yeah,
this
maybe
year.
we'll need to,
But I think we're going to need to.
yeah, because that social media issue is
Mhm,
gonna take some time probably.
mhm.
Okay. So why don't you go back and look? I think I was on it, but I don't know if I still am.
You were, and,
I think that was on it.
Yeah, Cliff and I were on it.
okay. So put that on the agenda for next
Yeah,
time,
and
to
then-
reappoint?
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on the goals, other than that one? These look, the completion dates look reasonable. And obviously, if things come up and we can't get to the completion date, then we'll address that and move the dates out. But everything else looks fine.
Okay, so we'll publish this and put it up on the website?
Yep. Okay, minutes. This is gonna be the longest item of the evening.
Oh, I don't think so.
No?
No?
Actually, I went through and, all right, so, of course, now I don't have them in order. Why that is, what's the first one? It's-
June 3rd, open session?
Okay, I just have them all backwards now. Okay. That's not it. June 3rd,
Mr.
I
Chairman,
found
move-
no issues on that one? Anybody have any issues? Yeah, Jerry.
I move to approve the June 3rd, 2013 open session minutes.
Second?
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 4-0. On this one, for the June 10th open session, on the top of page 4, we had a vote taken on the NREA's amended contract language related to teacher evaluation. And it says the motion passed 4-1. Mr. Bowers abstained, so that would be 4-0 with one abstention, not 4-1. And other than that, these are fine.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the June 10th, 2013 open session meeting minutes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. The June 24th open session. I found nothing amiss with these.
Move to approve the June 24th, 2013 open session meeting minutes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. June 24th executive session. Again, I didn't find anything here.
Move to approve the June 24th executive session minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. July 11th open session. Again, I found nothing here.
Move to approve the July 11 open session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Excuse me, 4-0. July 11th executive session.
Move to approve the July 11 executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. July 29th open session. These look good to me.
Move to approve the July 29th, 2013 open session meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. Oh, Cliff, excuse me, Cliff has to abstain from that one, because he wasn't here. So 3-0-1 on, with one abstention on that one. August 12th open session.
That should be 2013, right?
It is.
It is.
It is.
Did it say 2014 on yours?
Move to approve the open session meetings.
On the agenda, doesn't it say 2012?
Well,
On the agenda?
Oh, wait, on the agenda?
On the agenda.
no, I can't,
On the,
I can't.
Oh,
vouch
you
for
mean on the-
agenda. All I can vouch.
I know
for-
what you're talking about, on the
The
Oh,
notes.
the superintendent's report. Yeah. So Cliff moved to approve the August 12th, 2013 open
Second.
session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. And finally, the August 26th open session.
Move to approve the August 26th open session. It's-
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Those are a lot of minutes, that's like an hour.
Yeah, it was
Really?
at least a half an hour.
Yeah.
Half an hour of minutes. Very good. Okay. Budget update, anything? Michael?
No update this evening.
Okay.
We'll present the first
All right.
projection report on the 23rd.
Okay. Next, staffing. I know we have a lot of staffing to talk about. Kathy?
Yes, in your packet, you'll see a brief staffing report, and this indicates the names of all of those individuals that have been hired to fill vacancies that resulted from either resignations or retirements or non-renewals. So you can see that we have quite a few individuals. This list also includes long-term subs that have been filled for vacancies of which we are aware at this current time. So we had an overall hiring of 21 professional faculty, with 4 long-term subs filling in for teachers that need to take a leave of absence. We also hired 13 paraprofessionals, with 2 long-term subs that will be coming in once some of those individuals, or 2 individuals, need to leave on a short leave of absence. So that's a total of 34 permanent hires that were conducted beginning last spring and ended a week before the students returned in August. It was a very busy summer for hiring. But we're very pleased.
We should commend our Human Resources Department.
Yes, very.
Yes, where is that person?
I didn't even know we had a human resource.
I know, huh? Kathy, one thing I noticed of the new teachers and staff, 10 of those are in the special ed area.
Yes.
Are those replacements or are some of those new positions?
Let's see. Most of them are replacements.
Okay.
We did create a new program at the middle school to continue a program that had been in place at the elementary schools.
Mhm.
So there are some new staffing as far as that one program is concerned, and that includes paraprofessionals. But other than that, these are replacing professionals that moved on. That's right. We do have a new position that has been included at the high school, and that's the school adjustment counselor. You may recall that we reorganized or restructured at the high school. We had an alternative alternative education program at the high school. We took that position because we didn't need to continue with that position and moved that to a school adjustment counselor position. And I can tell you already, they're very pleased with the work that's being done at the high school.
Now, what is the responsibilities of that role?
The school adjustment counselor spends a lot of time interfacing with families when students are experiencing difficulty with school. Some of the students that may have been in an alternative education program are still there, and so they require a high degree of interaction between the school and the family or the home. And so this person spends an awful lot of time following up with family members around the success of those students.
Because one of my concerns, and it gets bigger every year, is the small size of our guidance counselor staff at the high school,
Mhm.
especially given the enrollment. What do we have, 2 or 3 guidance counselors and then a psychologist, or 2 guidance counselors and a
Well, we have
psychologist?
3 guidance counselors, and then a director of guidance who also has a caseload, and then we have a school psychologist, and now we have an adjustment counselor. So we're increasing our support services to students in a comprehensive counseling program. So the school adjustment counselor does participate and fall into the category of guidance at the high school.
I personally would ask that next year, we're gonna be looking at 800 students at the high school. I think a caseload of 200-plus students for each guidance counselor just isn't, I think kids need a lot of help.
We'll take a look at the
high
I can bring in the MASCA, the Mass Association of School Counselors.
Mhm.
We can take a look at the recommended ratios of student to
Okay.
adult
All right. I think
and
that'd be
make some
helpful.
decisions around that as we develop the budget for
Okay.
FY15.
All right. Anything else on staffing? I will say, I showed up for lunch on the first day. I didn't make the bus tour. I couldn't make it.
Geez, you're lucky.
But I heard Ann Lundell does a wonderful job as the tour
Yeah.
guide. So, but I had lunch, I sat at a table with a bunch of the staff. And it turns out I was sitting next to Carrie Verdonk's sister, who is now teaching in
Tara.
the system,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So, but I sat with a great group of teachers, probably
Mhm.
8 or 10
Mhm.
teachers, and
Were they all happy?
yes,
Good.
seemed very positive.
They are very positive. We were very appreciative that Chairman Webster came and met the teachers. Some of them have commented to me that that's not typical. That hasn't been their experience in other school districts, so they very much appreciated that. And then Mr. Webster also came to the Welcome Back Day, the
Right.
opening day, and made remarks to the entire body of professionals and paraprofessionals, and as well as administrators. So that was appreciated too. And your theme of The Wizard of Oz was intriguing.
And it was a lot of energy. I'll tell you later, Jerry.
Trouton's never left
No,
us.
Favorite movie.
But there was great energy in the room. The new teachers were just excited to be there. We didn't have as many 35-year teachers or 30-year teachers as we've had in the
No.
past this time. So
Exactly.
The way we're
this-
turning them over, there has to be like 8 or 9.
8 or 9 years, yeah. No, we had
Yes.
some 25s, I think.
Well, I asked, after the new teachers and the new teachers were introduced, I asked all those educators that had 20-plus years to stand up, and then to remain standing if you had 25-plus years. And there were 3 educators and 1 administrator
Jeez.
standing at that time, and then add me. And then I'm the only one with 30-plus years.
Right.
Jeez, that's really unusual.
It is. It just gives you an idea of the change in demographics.
They
of
are
the
a unique
teaching
group, though. They're the only people in
force.
the world that coming back from vacation to go to work. They're
They're
so
excited.
excited.
So
and enthusiastic.
excited.
I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. It really
Takes me a
is.
while to calm them down before I can
But
start.
It's crazy.
Yes,
You can feel the buzz in the room.
It is. The buzz is unbelievable, and it's
That they're
really
coming back to work.
It's really loud, and of course, one of the biggest cheers of the day was the morning was when Kathy announced that this will be the last meeting, back to school meeting we'll be holding in this
Really?
auditorium.
So they're excited about
They
They're
that.
love
very
that.
excited.
Yeah.
Loud
Yeah.
applause.
So,
Very, very excited.
any other comments on new staff?
No,
Okay. Bids and donations,
none at this time.
subcommittee updates. We've scheduled a meeting for the athletic subcommittee on September 24th.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the only one we have scheduled right now?
So far,
Okay.
yes. We'll get the others scheduled before the next school committee meeting.
Okay. Administrative report.
Yes, I distributed an administrative report to you. And two items of interest on that administrative report this evening. The first is the good news. And what I've included for you in the administrative report is an overview of the 2013 SAT scores. And they are wonderful, in a word. I can tell you that the scores for 2013 are the highest in the 8 years that we've been collecting data on the verbal critical reading, and the highest for the verbal writing. And when you take a look at the last 8 years in mathematics, actually, if you take a look at the last 20 years that we've been collecting data in mathematics, those SAT scores are the highest in 20 years.
The math number blows me away. That's a really good number for an average.
It's incredible. So I have a little bit of analysis that I did just to walk through this. In the last 8 years, we've seen the verbal critical reading SAT score increase by 33 points. In 2006, the North Reading High School score was 1 point above the state and 5 points above the national. In 2013, the North Reading High School score is 32 points above the state and 51 points above the national. So there's really been a tremendous amount of growth. Under the verbal writing, in 2006, the North Reading High School score was 522. In 2013, it's 546, so we've seen an increase of 24 points. And back in 2006, North Reading was 12 points higher than the state and 25 higher than national. In 2013, North Reading High School is 37 points above the state and 58 points above the national. And if you travel down to mathematics, I'm just going to take a look at the last 8 years so that it's comparable to the verbal. And in 2006, North Reading scored 526, which is 2 points higher than the state and 8 points higher than the national. In 2013, North Reading High School scored 577, 48 points higher than the state and 63 points higher than the national average. So I would say that our students are achieving at very high levels, and they continue to increase that achievement over the years as we collect data. We're very proud of the student performance.
Very good.
I'm really happy to see this. I know when Mel first came on the committee, this was one of his
Right.
pet peeves, so to speak, and he had brought the high school principal in and essentially said, look, we got to get these scores up. And what's amazing about this is if you look at all three areas, the critical reading, the writing, and the mathematics, on the national level, it's gone down in every one of those every single year over the last 9-10 years. It's actually gone down. The state, pretty much the same. The scores have either stayed stagnant at the same or gone down. And we've showed a dramatic increase, particularly this year, but even last year. So this is, it seems like we're doing something right. I don't know whether it's the prep courses that we're giving or the curriculum, whatever it is. This is really, because we were very disappointed 7 or 8 years ago.
Well, and I give, I think that was one of my goals when I came on, and Jerry and I spent a lot of time with John, and I think my first and second year, and I give John credit
I
for
do.
instituting those courses that are available and for focusing on this area.
Because this was a concern. And I'll say this, you can't judge, obviously, the achievement of the students based solely on these types of
Correct.
test scores, but it's nice to see us being competitive. And I don't even know how we compare to the the communities we should compare ourselves to. But I just know when you look at as you pointed out, the difference between the national and the state levels and how much we've increased every year over the last 8-9 years, it's remarkable.
Mhm.
So,
So what is, I mean, do you have any analysis as to why? Especially the math jump is.
It's incredible.
It's almost shocking.
Well, I think there's many factors, as you could well imagine. I think the course that has been put into place to support those students that would like some additional support, it's well subscribed. I think the educators that are teaching the classes at the high school are highly talented. I think we've added some courses as well as advanced placement courses
Right.
that really have elevated the rigor and the relevance of the curriculum that's being provided to our students at the high school. I think the leadership of Mr. Bernard has an awful lot to do with it. He brings forward to you every year additional courses that are proposed by our educators to really round out what's offered at the high school. And I think our students are very talented. I think they're being prepared prior to arriving at the high school in ways that allow them to really access a rigorous curriculum at the high school. So I think it's a whole system approach.
I think you have to credit the school committee, too.
And I-
It starts
and
at the top.
finally-
It starts at the top.
And finally, I think it's the
Yeah.
school committee.
Thank you. I was wondering when you were going to get to that.
I mean, we had a 2+% increase in 1 year in the total score from last year. The total for the 3 tests is 1,670. That's phenomenal. Obviously, we want to continue to do better, but it's great to see this progress.
Yeah.
And in some cases, we've had some years where we've gone up and down, but there's pretty progressive improvement in math and in critical reading. We've had some more ups and downs in writing, but
Well, we set the bar high now. This is going to be tough
Yeah,
next
exactly.
year to
Right.
Yeah.
keep
And
up
again,
with
trend
this.
analysis is important. No
Yeah.
one year
Right.
allows us to formulate any kind of analysis, but
Right.
taking
If
a
it's
look at
bad,
data.
no, but if it's good, I mean,
Looking at data over time, it's a pretty remarkable record.
What's happening too, and I think it all, works into this, is that the kids have something that challenges them, and they rise to that. If you put something a little further, they'll rise to that. The kids are looking to get more. They sign up for the AP courses. They want more, and we're not just stymieing them by not providing that. We're providing more challenge for them, and then they're rising to it.
Mhm.
And, if you set the bar low enough, everybody will just goof off all the time. But in our case, we're not. And I think that's a good, the results speak for themselves.
well, as Jerry said, we have a high bar now, and that's good, though. High bar is good.
Yeah. Not high enough, but.
No, keep going higher. Anything else on this? It's great news.
No, the second item in the packet is information that I provided to you about the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, also known as PARC. The first item attached is the letter that I received last week around our participation in this initiative. And then the second document that was included is the frequently asked questions about the PARC field test. So if you take a look at the letter, you'll see that if you turn to the third page in, the commissioner has made it known that there's an expectation that students will participate in this PARC field test. And so the vendor that is creating the assessment is Pearson. And so this letter is actually from the Pearson PARC program team. And what I need to do is to confirm participation of the classes and the schools that have been identified by September 18th, 2013. So the letter details for you the background information around PARC, the purpose of the field test, what is constituted in the field test. There are two kinds of components. There's a performance-based assessment, and there's an end-of-the-year assessment component. There are different testing windows for each of those components, for ELA and for mathematics. And then it talks about the student participation in the field test. They will participate in one of two ways. They'll either take the paper pencil test, or they'll take the computer test. So as I had brought your attention to that third page, you'll see that 4 out of the 5 schools in North Reading have been identified to participate in this test. Now, not every grade has been identified. If you look at the E. Ethel Little School, in grade 3, we need to identify 2 classes that will take the online performance-based assessment in mathematics. You can see that they've identified that this assessment has 2 sessions. We've been told up to this point that we should schedule 2 hours for each session. So that means that the students that are identified in the E. Ethel Little School will participate in 4 hours of testing for this field test. Today, I participated with the Director of Academic Services and the 4 principals in each of these schools in an online conference call. So we were sent a PowerPoint, and we listened to a review of that PowerPoint for 90 minutes that started to detail some of the requirements for participation in PARC. There will be additional training that will be required of our administrators, of our educators. There'll be face-to-face training, there'll be online webinars, there'll also be tutorials that will be provided just to prepare for participating in this field test. In addition, Patrick Daly previously went through and needed to provide to the Department of Ed our capability in taking the online class. So we do have the capability that's required to participate, and that is why the department has indicated that North Reading will take the online test only and not the paper pencil.
So at all schools, we can handle the
Yes,
technology requirements?
not all at the same time, though.
Right.
So now we have a scheduling issue that we need to deal with when making sure that we provide the appropriate number of computers to the students that are participating in the appropriate fashion. So the LD Batchelder School has been identified to participate in grade 5. There'll be 2 classes that will take both the performance-based assessment and the end-of-the-year assessment. So that's 4 sessions for 2 hours each. That's an additional 8 hours of testing. North Reading Middle School, grade 8, ELA, 2 classes will participate in an end-of-the-year test. So each of these tests have different windows for when they will be administered. North Reading High School has been identified, grade 9, ELA, 3 classes. Will take the performance-based assessment, so that's 3 sessions times 2 hours each. That's 6 hours of testing. The geometry has been identified as the mathematics class that will be assessed. 4 classes will participate in this online performance-based assessment. And then in grade 11, the North Reading High School students will participate in the English Language Arts. 3 classes will, for both the performance-based assessment and the end-of-the-year
So
assessment.
shouldn't that be 6 sessions? It says 5. If there's 3 classes,
No, that's the number of sessions associated with the PBA
Right.
and the EOY.
but what I'm saying, if you look at the LD Batchelder, they're doing both PBA and end of year, and they have 2 classes, and it's 4 sessions. So this is 3 classes. I would guess that would be,
No, the number of sessions is dependent upon the actual assessment. So it has nothing to do with the number of classes participating.
Okay.
There are 3 sessions of one test and 2 sessions of another.
and who picks the 2 classes at the little school, or the 2 classes at the batch, or whatever?
More advisement will come to us later on, after we submit that we,
You have to check with that essay.
they haven't sent out that advisory yet, but they're supposed to be selected at random. But at the little school, we have 3 classes in grade 3.
Right.
So 2 of the 3 classes will participate.
And so when do we get the check from the state and federal government for all this work that we're going to be doing here?
Oh,
Yes.
after 70.
There's 300-plus kids. I'll tell you what, if I was a parent of a kid in this district, I would not allow my kid to take these tests. And I'm not trying to start a riot here, but this is ridiculous.
Well-
300 kids. We're, in my opinion, we're inconveniencing 300 kids so a private testing company can get their test right. And we're not getting a cent to do it, and we're putting our staff through additional training that shouldn't be required. It'll be required eventually. Our administrators through additional training. We've got to rejigger schedules, all for the convenience of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's just ridiculous.
Substantial bombed-in requirement.
300 kids.
So today during the webinar, we were told that 360 districts out of approximately 400 districts in the state have been identified to participate. There are close to 1,300 schools, which represent more than 70% of schools in the state. So roughly 87,000 students in grades 3 through 11 across this state will participate in this field test. And nearly 800 schools will administer computer-based tests, and close to 500 schools will administer the paper and pencil test. There is a slight overlap at the beginning of the PARC test window with MCAS. We do have an option of exempting students who participate in the PARC field test for the PBA or the PBA in the EOY from MCAS. But if we do that, we will have a hole in our data,
A big hole.
a big hole. So based on preliminary discussions today with the administrators, they were very fearful because, as you know, we are also implementing the educator evaluation system for the first time. And that's tied to student data,
Right.
MCAS data.
Right.
If we don't have that MCAS data, we now have educators that will not be tied to a statewide test because no results will be released from PARC.
You might end up having one, if you exempted the students taking PARC, say at Little School, third grade math, you'd have one class of MCAS results, and the other two classes you wouldn't have.
Now, you know that under the new accountability system in this state, it's tied to the Composite Performance Index,
Right.
which is predicated on MCAS performance.
Right.
If we only have one grade level at one class at one grade level at one school being reported out for MCAS performance, it skews all of the longitudinal data that we currently have. So we are inclined to have our students take the MCAS as well as participate in the PARC, particularly at the lower grades. But we're going to talk more about this at the Administrative Council meeting this Thursday. People participated in the webinar. They asked for a little time to process what they learned today, and we'll come back together. I am still inclined to write to the state and indicate that we have extenuating circumstances at the middle school and the high school and request exemption for participation due to all that's taking place. We have a NEASC site visit at the beginning of March at the high school, and that's for 4 days. We also have a move of the high school from the old building to the new building, and of the middle school from the old building to the old high school. And so we're preparing for that at the same time that all of this additional testing will take place. Now, today, during the webinar, there was discussed as to what extenuating circumstances would be considered, and what I just indicated to you is not on the list.
Probably take death of
Yeah, what's-
90% of the students in order to
What's an
be.
extenuating what are the circumstances? that
Some
you-
of them, this
Yes.
is not an exhaustive list, but some of the reasons for not participating include schools closed or grades no longer being served by a particular school,
Well, that would make
Those
sense. You don't have
students.
those grades or you don't have those schools. That's good.
school lacks technology to give computer-based tests,
Can't make this stuff up.
high school math course not offered in subject or field test.
Of course.
High school math tests are course-based or not grade-based. By the way, no 10th grader is going to be allowed to participate in the PARC field test because they must take
Right.
the high-stakes MCAS test in order to graduate. Now, we have identified geometry, or we've been identified to participate in the geometry field test for classes. What John is taking a look at is, do we have any of those classes integrated with 9th and 10th graders? So we'll have more information on Thursday. So time will be devoted to taking a look at that. The number of classrooms requested for a grade subject exceeds the number in the school. So that would
Those are good,
exempt.
those are really good reasons for not giving the test. You don't have the course, you don't have a school open, you don't have enough classes to meet their requirement.
You don't have any students.
Right, you don't have any students.
And level 4 schools may opt out.
Well, I'm good, we're not a level 4 school.
So those are some of the reasons for not participating. Again, we'll have an administrative council meeting on this Thursday. We don't have an awful lot of time. to be deciding one way or the other. We have to submit an online confirmation form by September 18th. They walked us through how to submit that form today as well. But we're giving it consideration.
I have more comments, but before I comment, anybody else have comments?
I've got comments, but I can't say them on here.
Well, maybe you can comment on my comments. What about the equity issue here? And this is why I get back to the parents. If I'm a parent and my kid has to take I think all MCAS tests are high stakes, not just the 10th grade, because they're a part of measuring the teacher's performance. But my child also has to take this other test, and tests create pressure. And I guess I see a real problem with equity in this, and that's why I say if I was a parent, what happens, I read an article today about, in a lot of states, parents are just keeping their kids home on the days of high-stakes testing, because to protest the testing attitude that pervades, or the testing environment that pervades. I don't support that. But what happens if parents decide they're not going to send their kids on these days?
We have to offer makeup sessions within the testing window that's provided.
Oh, my God.
And I suppose if we tell them that we're not going to do this, they'll say, you don't see any Chapter 70 funding.
That hasn't been explicitly stated, but there is an expectation, as you saw in the letter from Mitchell Chester that I gave to you, the commissioner. We are expected to participate if we've been identified.
I would say that, and comes from the mask email listserv, there's a lot of outreach about this, at least from the school committee side. And, a big part of it is there's no funding involved at all. And yet we're expected to provide all this additional training and taking teachers out of whatever they're doing to train them for this, and administrators. And will there be any change in what we teach, or no?
Well, the park is aligned to the Common Core standards. As you know, we've been aligning the curriculum frameworks to the Common Core standards over the last several years. If you take a look at the frequently asked questions document that I also provided to you under general question number 1, you can see that the park assessment is going to be operational in 2014-15. So there is a frame of thought that by participating in the field test, you have the opportunity to experience the administration of the park prior to it becoming the official test. Oh, and we also need to provide practice tests to our students so that they are familiar with how to take this test online prior to taking the actual field test.
So that's more time.
More time out of our teaching time.
So Park will be replacing MCAS in Massachusetts in 2014-15.
I believe that's the plan.
So if we do this and we do MCAS, then we'll have some sort of a correlation between the two. And the one thing that I see as a positive out of all of the all the kids who are taking this as a part of the development of the test, is that they're probably getting a more valid assessment of what the test results show, and increasing the validity of the test.
Well, one thing that I find interesting, and I don't understand how it works, but I know that there are several states that aren't going to be implementing the park test. So what do they do? I guess I don't. Could Massachusetts continue to use MCAS if it wanted to?
Our state commissioner is the chair of the park commission.
I guess that answers my question. But if he wasn't, could we continue to use MCAS, or would that have to be changed to adapt to the new
When our
Common
state
Core?
was awarded Race to the Top funds, one condition was
Hook.
that we would adhere to the Common Core standards and our students would participate in a national test. Now, there are 2 tests being developed. There's a Smarter Balance Consortium test and PARC. And those two tests are vying for adoption across the country.
So when will we see the Smarter Balance Consortium test come to us that we'll have to put our kids into?
I believe we are one of the 20 states. The state of Massachusetts is one of the 20-state consortium for park. So
Okay.
I think you bought into one or the other.
Okay. It's beyond annoying to me that they give us no funding for this. And Cliff's right in that in the long run, it'll be beneficial if it's conducted right, because we'll have some baseline scores to compare it to both future park tests and current MCAS tests. But the lack of funding and the equity issue and the time issue are concerning to me.
There is one difference between the MCAS and the park. MCAS is considered an untimed test. Park is timed. So there will be a difference in testing condition. Now, granted, they believe that they have built in enough time for students to take the test, and then 50% additional more time should they need additional time to complete the test. But it is a timed test, and that's different from MCAS.
And do you know if there's been any concern expressed that kids may do less well on MCAS because they also have to take this park test, and what kind of impact that might have? Has there been any discussion on that at all?
Well, again, they're leaving the decision as to whether or not students participate in both up to the local district. So
But
if
that's a
our students don't
catch-22
do
if-
well,
yeah.
then it's because we made the decision to participate
But we
in both.
can't
Well,
do
we're
otherwise.
teaching, we're teaching Common Core anyway, right?
Yeah.
We're teaching Common Core, quotes unquotes, but the Massachusetts version of Common Core.
Right.
And so we're teaching Common Core. So if they're both based on Common Core, then there's no study for it, right?
Mhm.
No, but I guess I'm saying if I'm a kid and I have to take 10 hours of tests instead of 4 hours or
What you're
whatever.
doing is you're missing education
Right,
time.
right, to take these
And
tests.
you're adding
Will
testing
we
time.
get the scores back from Park?
No.
No.
So
This
if
is a
we,
field
if
test.
we opted not to do MCAS and do just Park, we wouldn't be able to fudge the numbers,
So-
not fudge the numbers, but use the Park numbers in
No.
lieu of.
The students who, if we opted out of MCAS, there would be a hole
Right.
in the students'
And it's
data
because
over time.
So they're
Park.
not even gonna
Then I'm gonna get the
It's
scores.
not
So
given
they're not
us
even
the
gonna give us
scores.
students won't get
scores?
scores either?
No, there would be a notation in the parent guardian report, whatever test the students participated in, whether it was English language arts or math, there will be no scores reported for that year.
But even if we are taking MCAS and the Park, we're not gonna get the Park test results, so we
Right.
can't even compare with the
That's correct.
MCAS.
Right.
That's correct.
Ah,
So
That
what
stinks.
benefit is it then, other
Right.
So
than
you
the
don't
fact
get
that they,
anything benefit.
other than the fact that they've actually seen the test versus it's just implemented? No. There's-
Do you get any indication that there's any chance that, there's no chance that this is gonna change, right?
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. Anything else on Park? Exactly. Anything else in the administrative report?
None at this time, nothing else at this time.
Any correspondence?
Only from the Department of Ed.
Future business, we, okay.
I actually have something I'd like to pass on. There's a couple of things I've seen in the various articles I've read about school districts not taking federal money for their meals.
All right.
And that there was another piece of information we got somewhere recently, that we're only getting about $8,000 a year from the feds for our meal subsidy. Would it make sense for us to tell the feds to go away and do our own meal plan the way we want to do it? And tell the kids the real food that they'll eat? You know, the calzones and the meatball subs and all the good stuff that they'll actually eat.
So that is a question that has been, a lot of districts have been researching and looking into. And the question that really needs to be answered in order for us to find out if that is worthwhile or not to us is that above and beyond the federal USDA regulations, the DESE for last year came out with their own set of nutritional guidelines for all competitive foods in schools. And those guidelines at the moment are actually almost more restrictive than the federal USDA guidelines.
I'll go on to part two of my.
Yeah.
I saw something that looked to me like the city of Boston is being federally subsidized for breakfast and lunch
For everybody,
for all
for
students.
everybody, yes.
Now, if that's federal funding
It is.
for Boston, I've got my hand up, I want equal.
I don't know if you saw that story. It said that it was in the front page of the Globe several days ago. I've had my rant about it. It said that approximately 25 to 30% of Boston students can afford lunches, but that it's not worthwhile to try to collect the money from them. So they're going to provide free lunch and free breakfast to every kid in the Boston schools every day.
But the feds are providing the money for that.
Yes, from the federal government.
If they're providing it for Boston, I want it here.
And I just don't understand it. It's like, if kids can afford to pay, they should be paying. And yet you have all these other districts that are running these large deficits. And yet, there's
We
no
have-
money.
We have 2 senators and a rep that represent this district. We ought to have them working for this.
Correct?
Yeah. I mean, it is.
Every community in their district, they should be providing this for. If Boston can get it by every student, we shouldn't be catching an extra $100,000 a year because we can't sell the food that they want us to sell to the kids, because kids won't buy it, because it is lousy. It isn't what the kids want or need. They're I can appreciate that there are some places in the world, some ways in our country, where kids get obese because they don't eat right. It isn't because of school lunches. It's because of what they eat outside of school. And in our case, we don't have that problem. And we need to feed the kids at lunchtime. They come home from school starved. Starved.
I forget when that story came out. I think it was late last week?
It was late last week.
Thursday or Friday,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it boiled
We
my
can look
blood
into that.
instantly.
Yeah.
It was
Me too.
faster than an immersion heater.
Yep. I mean, it
Anybody
is a
remember
topic
those?
that's very much, a big issue with a lot of districts, a lot of, within, my affiliation, MASBO, because many business, managers are trying to answer that exact question. Is it worth it now to just not participate in the federal USDA program because of the loss in revenue, because of the guidelines and the restrictions, and, we've been really trying to get an affirmative answer. If districts opt to do that, what then may be the penalty of not adhering to the state guidelines, which are even more restrictive?
We also have the Senate, the House minority leader in our district. And we ought to be rapping on his door to get those standards changed so that we can have kids get the food that they
Right.
want to buy at lunch.
We do collect a little over $100,000 in federal reimbursement, though. It's not, I think you said it was 10,000. It is
I saw
greater
something
than
that
that.
said
Wow.
8.
Wow.
And
We get that much for the lunch program?
Through the Free and Reduced Lunch Program, yeah.
Hmm.
That's a lot of money if you're gonna have to abide by the state standards anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Somewhere I saw 8,000. I was in the financial planning team meeting.
I think this 8,000 is what comes in through the cherry sheet, which is it was what the town presented at the financial planning meeting. Then on top of that, at the end of each month, we submit additional reimbursement based on our free and reduced accounts per month at each school.
Okay.
And then there's additional federal reimbursement, and that's money that goes directly into our revolving account.
Okay, so it
So
doesn't,
it's-
it won't show up on the
It
towns.
does not
Yeah.
show up on the town. They're reporting the cherry sheet revenue.
One thing on that Boston, the story on Boston, it went on to, expanded to say that it's Boston, Chicago, it named several other cities where they just decided they're gonna give free lunches and breakfast to every kid. And I think we all know it's most important for a kid to not be in school and be hungry. So kids who need breakfast and lunch, that makes sense. But to say that, well, it's a waste of our time to try to collect the money from the 25 or 30% that can afford it, that should outrage everybody. because, you know, why do we have to waste the time then to collect it here? We have to spend money to collect money. We have to have people that do that.
Mhm.
So, it's a good point, Cliff. If you
Sorry.
can't find the story, let me know. Jerry, anything from under the Golden Dome as our State House report? Anything
Actually,
new?
you know, I did get
that's
something,
a
but
good
I think we
one.
already talked
Right.
about it, the changes in the bullying law. And then there was some changes that I think we can take a look at regarding executive sessions and how they should be conducted, but primarily dealing with negotiations on contracts. So
Okay.
nothing really startling or something that we haven't been doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know, I still haven't reserved my hotel room for the mass conference. I hope they still have them, or I'll be sleeping in my car for those 2 nights, but,
They might send you down the road to another location.
oh no. Oh well. Did you get your hotel already? Yeah, see, I'm way behind the curve here. All right, anything else? Any new business for anybody else? Okay, our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight?
Yes. Well, we have town meeting.
All right, that's it.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's September 23rd is the
Right.
next one, right? And then town meeting.
Town meeting is October,
7th.
and we'll meet at probably 6:30 or 6 that night before town meeting, right?
Mhm, yes.
We don't have, the school department doesn't have any items on the agenda, correct?
No, we do not.
Okay. All right. Well, one last thing. Did either of you, Michael or Janine, contact the selectmen? Sean Delaney was saying something about you may have to be appointed by them also for that capital planning committee or something. So you might want to contact Greg. Maybe, Michael, you can do it
Sure.
and see if you and Janine have to do anything else. I think you do have to get sworn in.
You have to
um,
get sworn in, yeah.
by the town clerk, but Sean mentions an additional appointment by the selectmen, so I just want to check
Okay,
on that.
I will follow up on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Probably like 100 people
Look at
sitting
that.
over there and